Hi, I'm Simon Wooding. I'm the Equipment and Observations Officer for AstroSoc, and I'm here to give you a short talk on cool, interesting things that you'll be able to see in the sky for the next few months. This is the last Astronomy in the City event for the academic year. There won't be another one until, I believe, October, so this talk is going to have to cover quite a lot of ground. I've put 5 months worth of events into this presentation. So if we start out with this month, the first interesting event that's going to happen is in 3 days, and that'll be Mercury at its greatest western elongation. Elongation is when planets that are closer into the Sun than the Earth are at their most visible positions. There's an eastern and a western version, and you can see them here compared to the Earth. So for Mercury, that means that if you want to see it as it's most visible, your best shot is to look in the eastern sky above the horizon just before sunrise on the 6th. On the 13th, there'll be a new moon, which is always good for observing, because it means the moon isn't in the sky blotting out some of the fainter objects. And on the 20th, there'll be the spring or the vernal equinox. And this is the equinox is the point of the year when the day and the night are the exact same length. So there's one in March and one in September. And the March one is the beginning of spring, and will also mean that the days start getting longer and the nights shorter, which is not great for us, less observing time, but it will mean that the weather gets nicer. And on the 28th, there'll be a full moon. So moving on to April, on the 12th there'll be another new moon, and the first really interesting event, in my opinion, will be on the 22nd and the 23rd, which is the peak of the Lyrids meteor shower. So the Lyrids are about an average shower, which means that they reach about 20 meteors per hour at their peak. This year, the full moon may be a bit of a problem because they can be quite faint, but some should still be visible if you want to catch them. And you can see here I've made this diagram. This is what the sky will look like on 1 a.m. on the 23rd, which will be about the best time to view them. And so normally the radiant point of a meteor shower is where the meteors appear to come from in the sky, although they do spread out quite a lot usually. And that's named after the constellation they're near or they come from, which in this case is Lyra. And Lyra, if you're like me and you're not great at spotting little constellations like this one, it can be a little bit difficult to find the meteor showers based on their names. So instead, my strategy for finding this one is to follow the head of Cygnus, the swan, which is a bit more identifiable, which is Deneb, along to Vega, which is the top of Lyra. They're both very bright stars. And if you draw a line across them like this, you'll reach the point in the sky pretty much where the Lyrids are. So then on the 27th will be the full moon, and there will also be a supermoon, which is not as exciting as it sounds. It just means the moon will be slightly brighter and larger looking than usual, thanks to it being fully illuminated by the sun. So then, moving on to May, on the 6th and the 7th is the peak of another meteor shower, the Aquarius. This, unfortunately, will probably not be that visible because it's mostly in the southern hemisphere, although it is quite a intense meteor shower, so if you can catch any of it, it ought to be pretty good. Unfortunately, though, if there's anything blocking the horizon near you in that direction, or if you're not very high up or don't have much dark sky, then it probably won't be very obvious. You can still try though if you want, and this is the date that it'll be peaking at. So then there'll be a new moon on the 11th, and on the 17th, Mercury will be its greatest eastern elongation, which is the opposite of what we had before, and it'll be equally as visible, just instead of in the morning, it'll be in the evening in the western sky, just after sunset. And on the 26th, we have another supermoon. So moving on to June, we have a new moon on the 10th, and really excitingly actually, we also have an annular solar eclipse on the same day. And this is as you can see from this diagram, is a total solar eclipse. Unfortunately for us, the total solar eclipse bit of as viewed on Earth will be mostly in the Arctic and eastern Russia. So in Europe, we will only get a partial eclipse. But what we get in the UK ought to still be pretty good, about 30 to 50% coverage depending on how far north and west you are. The best bit will be in very north Scotland, and this will be about 10 a.m, 11 a.m for us. So let me just say, you should absolutely not look at this directly with your eyes, especially seeing it's not a total solar eclipse. Though if you can get a telescope to observe this, or a camera of some kind, then that's probably fine. But assuming that we're not incredibly covered with cloud at that point, it ought to at least be visible in its effect in the shade. Like, it'll be strong enough that it ought to be visible in the sun's effect on the Earth around us. And then on the 21st we have the Summer Solstice, which is the official beginning of summer and the longest day and the shortest night. So from this point on, the nights will be getting longer and the days shorter, which is obviously good for us astronomers. Although it also will be getting hotter, which is not as good, thanks to the heat in the air causing movement, which can interfere with some telescopes. But then on the 24th there'll be a supermoon again, a lot of those this summer. Okay, so moving on to the last month, July, we have Mercury at its greatest western elongation again, and this is the same as before. It will be visible in the eastern sky just before sunrise, low in the sky. And then on the 10th we have a new moon, nothing else happening until the full moon on the 24th. And finally we have, on the 28th and the 29th, is the peak of the Delta Aquarius meteor shower. This, unfortunately, the full moon a few days before will still be quite bright, and as you can see here in this diagram, it'll be pretty close in the sky to the radiant point of this shower, which means it will blot a lot of it out. But if you want to catch it, actually, this one's quite easy to find, both because it's just above the horizon and you can just look to the southeast, and also because at this time of year both Jupiter and Saturn will be quite visible, although neither have reached their peak of visibility yet. That, I think, happens in August. But if you want to find this shower, it's literally right next to Jupiter, and Jupiter ought to be pretty visible. All of these bright objects in the sky will probably block most of it from vision unless you're somewhere very, very dark. But you can still try. It's a pretty good shower. Okay, so that's everything for these 5 months. I've made a summary here if you want to take a photo of this. Or you can probably look at this presentation. It ought to be uploaded to the observatory website as a PDF sometime after this talk has been given, if you want to check any of this. But, you know, this is going to be a very good time for a whole bunch of things to be happening for these next few months. And of course also because it's the summer, it'll be a lot less cold when if you decide to go out on a clear night. So this is a great time for observing, and you should probably try to catch at least a few of these, especially a solar eclipse, assuming the weather allows. But this is all pretty exciting stuff, and thank you very much for coming to this talk, and I guess on to the next one. Thank you.